Hi, my name is Sarah Byrn Rickman and I'm an author. I was a finalist in the young adult literature in 2019 and 2020. 2019 was B.J. Erickson, WASP Pilot. 2020 was Nancy Love, WASP Pilot. I'm going to read the prologue and chapter 1 from last year's winning book, Nancy Love, WASP Pilot. The Army C-54 began its takeoff roll. The lumbering giant strained to gain momentum. The wind caught its wings, and the aircraft lifted from the runway. Fully loaded, the four-engine wartime beast of burden climbed up through the heavy, humid air of Calcutta, India. The pilot set an east by northeast heading and flew out over the jungles of East India. The aircraft was headed to the Hump, a World War II highway in the sky over the Himalayan mountains and the impenetrable jungles of Burma. This was the United States' all-important wartime supply route to war-weary Kunming, China. A woman's hands held the controls of the 38,930-pound cargo transport plane. The pilot's name was Nancy Harkness Love. In spite of the airplane's size, power, and heft, hydraulics, which is water under pressure that makes the airplane easier to handle, assured that a woman could fly it as well as a man. At 5'6" and blessed with long legs, Nancy was tall enough for her feet to comfortably reach the rudders. The familiar throb of the four engines soon calmed the adrenaline high triggered by her first trip over the rooftop of the world. The date was January 8, 1945. World War II had entered its final year. Victory would come first in Germany with the Allied countries' defeat of the Nazis in May. Japan would surrender in August. But it wasn't over yet. After landing in Kunming, Nancy parked the airplane, cut the switches, and cleaned up the cockpit. She rose, dropped her headset on the seat, and followed her passengers and crew out of the airplane into the cold, dry air and pale winter sunshine. She wore a wrinkled khaki Army-issue flight suit and bulky leather jacket. But for her softly waved chin-length hair, she might have passed as a young male crewman. As she walked toward the group of officers clustered on the ground, she did not stride purposefully, nor did she walk like many women would have, to call attention to herself. She was, in fact, slightly pigeon-toed and had a hint of a glide to her step. She moved with the poise that conveyed more self-assurance than she actually felt. She extended her hand and offered a firm handshake. Always guarded, Nancy didn't try to impress. She stayed low-key. When she smiled, her luminous gold-flecked hazel eyes took in each man, graciously making him feel as if he was the object of that smile. 30-year-old Nancy Love was a strikingly beautiful woman, with high cheekbones and delicate features. Her light brown hair had begun to go gray at 19, beginning with a streak that swept back from the right side of her forehead. The gray gave her an aura of maturity. Her reserve, carefully honed over those 30 years, masked her drive. Nancy greeted challenges with cool assessment, never allowing the passion that lurked beneath the surface to show in her soft voice. That she had been asked to take part in this flight, to fly this airplane, was a coup, the high point of a distinguished aviation career that, by 1945, had covered 15 years. Dutifully, she recorded the Hump flight in her logbook. She wrote nothing else of the flight. She didn't need to. She had done it. She was the first woman to pilot a military airplane over the Hump. Chapter 1. Nice Young Ladies. Nice young ladies don't do such things, Nancy's mother said when her daughter announced she'd like to learn to fly. 16-year-old Hannah Lincoln Harkness born Valentine's Day in 1914 and nicknamed Nancy by her father, had seen a barnstorming pilot performing loops and rolls over her Houghton, Michigan home. The little airplane seemed to dance in the sun, catching and reflecting the rays off its yellow wings. For a penny a pound, $1 and change at her weight, Nancy wangled a ride with 18-year-old pilot Jimmy Hansen. A 360-degree roll left and one to the right were followed by some over and under loops that were stock thrills for traveling pilots. Like Jimmy, he executed them for first-timers. If Jimmy thought these would turn this young lady green, he was wrong. She was hooked and said so that evening at the dinner table. "Daddy, I want to learn to fly." Flying, she added, was far more fun than school. She intended to give all her time to flying. Dr. Harkness hid his amusement. He adopted a stern face and worked out a deal with her. Yes, she could take flying lessons, but school was not an option. She would return to Milton Academy, a prep school outside Boston, in the fall. When she left for her first flying lesson, her father told her, "Do it well or not at all." For the rest of his life, Dr. Harkness kept a scrapbook of his precocious daughter's aviation exploits. Throughout the rest of her life, Nancy followed those 7 words of advice from her father. She soloed, flew alone in the airplane after only 4 hours, 30 minutes flying time. Before long, she had earned her private pilot's license. Back in school in Boston, she didn't wait any time getting in the air. Nancy Love, WASP Pilot. Nancy happened to be the leader of the Women's Auxiliary Ferrying Squadron, the first squadron of women pilots to fly in World War II. Thank you.